Merlin, you got to talk about that. HBCU through and through. It's the lifeblood of your family, your legacy. Like, and you know what? Why was that important?
I think the reason why we put it on first is because by the grace of God. And I don't say that as a cliche. I say that literally because God had to really help us, number one. I think number two, we always had a levels of communication, and we understood that we both had to make sacrifices. And so we were just willing to do all we can for our kids and be consistent as parents. And we always made a choice to play the roles that God called us to play, but we never tried to outdo each other, and we always stayed on the same page. Like our kids, they couldn't manipulate us because my wife and I, we communicated together, so we were always on the same page. So it was always like, well, go ask your daddy, but we've already talked about it. So we always backed each other, we always supported each other, and we tried our best not to ever argue in front of the kids. I think the one key thing is we always raise our kids around the table. Statistically, it shows that families that have dinner together at least 3 out of 7 nights a week, the kids are least likely to do drugs, alcohol, drop out of school, have premarital sex, and they're more likely to do all the things that we desire them to do. So, with all four of our kids, we would literally have dinner together every single night, Monday through Thursday. And what we would do was we would sit around the table and we had this little basket full of scriptures. We would pull a scripture, I will read the scripture, and then everyone around the table would talk about the scripture. And then afterwards, we would just have a conversation. I remember when Trayvon Martin was killed, we must have talked until almost 1 o'clock in the morning as a family. So even when our kids were younger, we always raised our kids around the table. And during that process, we use that as an avenue to be able to instruct our kids, to encourage them. But not only that, we also can see the changes in them. Like when you raise your kids around the table, you can look at the things that they dress, how they're speaking, and you can tell if they're hanging out with different people. You can tell if they're involved in certain things that maybe shouldn't be by some of the answers that they gave. And then after dinner, my wife and I, we would kind of process the conversations to just to make sure that we're checking in with each other to say, okay, did you notice this about this person? Did you notice that about that person? And then we would build conversation from there. Now, let me tell you a true story. So our oldest son was in student apartments up at FAMU in Tallahassee, and my wife went up to see him. And when she went in, he had four other people in his with his as roommates. And when she opened the door, his friends were sitting down talking. And my son was in the bathroom. They got up and said, "Hey, Miss Baker, how you doing?" They got up and I hugged her. And she said, "What?" She said, "What are you guys doing?" They said, "Miss Baker, Merlin said we should always have dinner together as a family. So that's what
Oh
we do
wow.
almost every night." So I want to encourage parents to let you know. And the one thing that my wife and I always taught our kids is that these rules go with you everywhere. Now, again, our kids aren't perfect. They make mistakes. They do crazy stuff like everyone else. But that's the way that my wife and I kind of raised our kids. And we were very consistent with that as parents.